Welcome. Today's episode will be all about the first protagonist of the series, William. William Rowe is a determined, strong-willed officer and tank commander of the 7th Royal Tank Regiment. Rowe is quite a special character, as he was the first and initially the only protagonist of BioWar. So, how did I come up with him? What is his purpose in the story? How has he evolved over time? That is what we are going to discuss today. So, to start with, William Rowe's creation. My whole concept for the series was created at the exact same time William was. This being a writing task set during my time at university. With a basic prompt of horror from my writing tutor, having recently watched the film Fury and replayed one of my favourite Resident Evil games, it didn't take long for my mind to mix the two together in order to create the very first semblance of BioWar. What I'm going to read to you now is an unedited sample of that very first draft, taking place during a bioweapon offensive on the city of Paris. The streets were desolate, empty, strewn with rubble that crunched under the treads of our vehicles. The air was filled with dust that carried the stench of cordite, leather and rotting meat across the entire front line. Despite this, me and my crew kept our hatches open, leaning on the hull and turret of our M4A3 5D Firefly and savouring the rancid foul air before we were locked inside the fighting compartment of our tanks. Looking behind me, I glanced over the rest of our column. A Cromwell Crocodile flame tank, a rare sight even then, considering how many had been destroyed the previous year, an M10 tank destroyer, another rarity in the form of a Sherman carrying an 150mm short howitzer, and 3 M3 half-tracks full of infantry, attached from a division I can't even remember the name of. "Stukas!" cried our loader, crouching back down into the turret and closing his hatch. I looked up, seeing the black, writhing blotches in the sky above and buttoning up soon after my loader. The inside of the turret was cramped, our modified Firefly carrying a newly designed 105mm gun that took up most of the space. The heavy rumble of the engine drowned my hearing until I replaced my beret with my leather helmet. The engine sound dulled, and was replaced with the gust-like sound of my blood pumping. I peered through the small viewports in my commander's cupola, observing the rows of buildings around us. Being in the outskirts of a built-up area of Paris was dangerous for a tank, especially one that hadn't been spliced like the Germans had. With nowhere to turn quickly, we were vulnerable to air attacks and infantry ambushes. With our column of vehicles spotted, the trio of Stukas above us had seized upon the opportunity to strike. Taking a chance, I pulled open my hatch again, taking the binoculars from around my neck and trying to get a fix on the 3 dive bombers. I spotted them, the cockpits bulging with inflamed muscle, tattered and haired wings beating almost at random. The lead aircraft's air intake had grown into a vicious maw that was wailing at us as the Stukas dived. Underneath the fuselage of each of the winged monstrosities was a huge, fleshy growth, a bulbous eye protruding from its front. Acid bombs. I looked back down the convoy, seeing the M3 half-tracks veering off the road, with footsloggers spilling over the sides to take cover. The commander of the Cromwell flailed his arms at me in confusion, before disappearing back inside his armoured tomb. For I can assure you, that's exactly what it was about to turn into. William as a character was, both in that moment, the quiet and calculating leader of the almost entirely wiped out 7th RTR. His sole objective, to ensure the survival of his troops through the apocalyptic war zones of Europe. But this isn't all for William, as slowly but surely his character began to evolve from that initial personality. Although he may have started out as a novelised 20-something-year-old Brad Pitt, although he may have started out as a novelised 20-something-year-old Brad Pitt, William steadily evolved into deeper and more complex character. Which leads us quite nicely onto my next topic. William's backstory. Born in 1921, William reveals little else about his life before the military, though we know that the Rowe family had contact with Bell Arms at some point, as William's Webley Fosbury revolver was manufactured by them. Signing up in 1940, the quiet and serious young William quickly showed his aptitude for armoured warfare, being assigned to the 7th Royal Tank Regiment for his entire career. In 1945, the 7th was all but decimated thanks to the menace of the bioweapons, until a single platoon remained. This platoon, including William, were given new vehicles for an operation that would see the demise of the 7th RTR in its entirety, all except for William, who had somehow become the sole survivor of the regiment. Having returned to the UK traumatised and disenfranchised with high command, William was promoted in order to train and lead the reformed 7th RTR, having been given the newly created rank of commander. By the time training was complete and the 7th was returned to France, they were only 6 tanks strong, accompanied by mechanised infantry scavenged from other depleted units. Rowe would fight to keep everyone alive, right up until the order was given to fall back to Paris, where the Allies' last chance at turning the tide of the war lay. And that's it for William's backstory. For more, you'll just have to wait for the book. Next up, though, we have the all-important Q&A. Now, questions are still few and far between, but this may pick up a little thanks to some news I have to share with you later. First up, we have a question from the YouTube comments section. What kinds of perspective does the book follow? BioWar is set to follow the perspectives of 4 main characters. William as a tank commander and leader of the 7th RTR, who we have just discussed. Henry, the Gloucester Meteor pilot. Charlie, the Royal Commando sniper. And Carl, who is, well, Carl. The idea behind this is that the first book will have a healthy mix of different perspectives, all of which can be read in isolation if you so choose. Our next question is from a friend of mine. Is there any social media pages I can follow? Yes, there is. Take a look in the description below for links to the Facebook and Instagram pages, where I post regularly with art and previews. Our next question is from someone I spoke to in person recently, asking the following. Is there a character that you feel has been inspired by yourself and your own experiences? Well, to start with, I will clarify that I have not served in the military, nor been a bounty hunter. However, there are some features of the protagonist's experiences that I have taken from my own, though I'm not going to say too much about what those entail, as far as a fair few of them are spoilers. In terms of a specific character, though, I would say I find myself thinking or behaving more like Charlie and Henry on a daily basis, rather than Carl or William. Though, granted, there are occasions when I find myself saying something that William would definitely have said himself. Regarding Carl, some of the ways I relate to him would be a serious spoiler for the story, but there are aspects nonetheless. And that leads me nicely onto my progress report. So, for today's progress report, firstly, progress has been a tad slower lately, mostly thanks to a busy life away from writing. I have, though, made some headway in certain aspects. Firstly, you may notice more posts on the social media accounts. Where possible, I encourage you to share these posts as much as possible, as they really help to spread the word. Secondly, as seen earlier, I am now at a stage where I can begin to share some samples of the book, and I shall be doing so most devlog episodes from now on. Third, I am now writing scripts for these devlogs. After the interesting events of the last episode, I felt it was better to have a script to keep me on track and focused. Lastly, I am soon going to be doing an interview. A publishing friend of mine has kindly offered to give me an interview regarding my series, and, all going well, I should be able to talk about this and preview it at the next devlog. In terms of writing, I am now finally making more progress with Red Offensive, with another chapter almost completed. And that's about it for this month's episode. In the event of any urgent updates or news, I shall be making some impromptu additional videos, or possibly some extra content on concepts in the series that people wish to have more clarification on. For now, though, that's it. Have a fabulous day, and I will see you again next month.